right, welcome into the Florence Barleycorns tonight. It is indeed Monday Night Football in more ways than one. It's our COOOPER football show with Jaguars coach Randy Borchers and others. I'm your host, Tom Gamble. And don't forget, we've got a Monday Night Football doubleheader, 7:30 Jacksonville at Buffalo. And then, of course, 8:15, the Bengals hosting the Washington, almost said Redskins, Commanders in the second Monday night game. So we got plenty to talk about, and including we've reached the midway point. Hard to believe 5 games are in the books, and Cooper's a perfect 5-0, although Friday night for a brief period maybe you trailed for once, right? Trailed 3 times in the game, down 7-0, 14-7, 21-14 before ultimately scoring 20 unanswered in the second half and then 14 unanswered later for a 62-36 win over Great Crossing, which was a formidable opponent. A 6A school ranked number 7 in the state in 6A, which is the largest classification. And they did some pretty good things. You guys responded ultimately. We'll talk about some of the good, some of the maybe improving areas as we head into this week, the big game. Cooper at Highlands. They played twice last year. Crazy games. 58-51 Highlands wins at Cooper in the regular season. And then 17-15 in the state semis in Fort Thomas, which is where Friday's game will be, kickoff 7. Cooper prevails. And the last few minutes of that game, crazy on all fronts. But let's go back to Friday night. And you, I think, were a little wary. You thought Great Crossing, obviously watching them on film, would be a pretty solid opponent, and they turned out to be. Now, be honest with me, was there a time in the first half, because you guys were doing some uncharacteristic things for Cooper, right? I mean, they defensively, and they wound up with 21 first downs, 400-plus yards of offense, but you had some costly penalties. Defense in some ways couldn't get off the field. Were you at all concerned? And I know you called a timeout and went out on the field and weren't pleased, but were you a little worried at some point in the first half?
I wouldn't say worried in the first half, but I would say I knew we weren't playing up to our capability. To be honest with you, we were flat. And we weren't playing with a lot of energy. We were just kind of going through the motions, and Great Crossings were the more physical team, and they were taking it to us. And, we had to try to wake our kids up a little bit and kind of get in a groove. And, the first quarter we weren't really clicking offensively. We were struggling to move the ball. We were struggling to get anything going offensively. But once Cam kind of got going, he got in his groove, and then we started to settle down, and then we started moving the ball pretty well.
Let me ask you before I get to some of the – I've got 3 big plays that I felt like were huge in the game in the first half. But when you say your team appeared flat, can you sense that as a coach on game night? If so, what do you attribute that to? Is it playing a team? I mean, Great Crossing, you beat them 40-0 last year. I know they came in 4-0. They're from outside Northern Kentucky. There was is it look ahead to Highlands? What is it? Can you put a finger on why a team like yours, ranked number 2 in 5A in the state, number 1 in the RPI, with all that you've got to play for, would come out flat?
Well, I think it starts in practice. We just didn't practice well that week. We had some heat, and our kids were, in some ways feeling sorry for themselves. Practicing all week. It was a little hotter than it had been. Playing a team from outside the area, a team that we beat 40-0 last year. And then, regardless of what you preach to these kids, how good kids are, they knew how big of a game this was this week. And I think kids are kids, and they're going to overlook it a little bit, especially, when you beat a team 40-0 the year before. You kind of overlook them a little bit. And, hopefully it was a little wake-up call to our kids that, we really can't overlook anybody, and we got to come every week ready to play.
Now let's talk about some of the big plays. I'm going to go to 3 of them in the first half. Ryker Campbell, the 92-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, and he had an outstanding special teams game, also defensively, but that was huge. The 40-yard TD pass from Cam O'Hara to Austin Alexander, which tied it, and then the ridiculously absurd pass on the final play of the second quarter, first half, from O'Hara to Isaiah Johnson, where he literally caught the ball around the back of the defender, and he's turning into circus catches almost seemingly every week. But those, to me, were 3 big plays. I know they came out in the second half, put together did great crossing, a drive, a big long run, but then you get 20 unanswered, 14 unanswered. So how big were those plays? And I'm going to start with Ryker Campbell. We're going to talk to Austin Alexander. Breakout game for him. 10 catches, 165 yards receiving, 3 TDs. He almost doubled his production in receptions for the first 4 games. Ryker Campbell with all the return yards, the 2 interceptions. I mean, those 2 guys who we're going to talk to tonight really came up huge.
They did, and, we know what Austin can do. In the first couple games, he had a couple, key drops for us and uncharacteristic drops for us, early in the season. So hopefully Friday night's game was kind of a confidence boost for him. And, we know what he can do, and we continue to try to get him the ball because he's a matchup nightmare for most teams. And, we saw great crossings and kind of saw what they had in the secondary. So we're trying to figure out how they were going to try to play us, how they were going to try to take our guys around. And, we were able to find a matchup that, that was favorable for us with Austin. We just took advantage of it.
And Cam O'Hara continues to put up obscene numbers. I mean, 21 of 32 or 33, I might be off by 1 there, for 313 yards, 6 touchdown passes. He also ran for 1, which was a nice run, too, a key play. So you're looking at 83 for 124, 1,254 yards, 20 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And you got to take out he didn't play 2 halves of some of the games. Those numbers are incredible, and his touchdown to interception ratio for his career is absurd. I mean, coaches preach all the time, don't turn the ball over and make smart plays. I mean, that's all he does.
Yeah, and I think the biggest stat you mentioned was the 1 rushing touchdown. This is 3 straight games in a row that he's had a rushing touchdown. And I think when you look at his game, that's the thing that's really kind of improved the most and he's matured at the most is being able to take off. And, with the receivers we got in our passing attack, a lot of teams really don't honor him with the run, so teams are bailing out. So, if he can be that threat to run the ball and take off, if teams are going to drop 7 or 8 guys, that's going to be even a bigger dynamic that's going to help us down the road.
Now, Friday night at Highlands, 7 o'clock kickoff. They're a really good football team. They're 4-1. Their only loss was 2 weeks ago in overtime, 34-28 in Union to Ryle. Jake Savage scored the game winner in OT, had 4 touchdowns. But they've shut out 2 of their last 3 opponents. They also beat Coveney Catholic, which is a good football team, by 11. They beat Lexington Catholic. So, and Bob Spire, who took over in 2021, he's 26-11, got him to the state semis, played you guys, obviously, last year and twice. And they're a good football team. And line-wise, offensive and defensive line, I've talked to some folks who say they might have the best lines that they've ever had. And I know anytime, and your lines have, I think, played pretty well in 5 games, but nonetheless, Ryle was able in that second half to control the line of scrimmage a little bit for a brief period on Friday. Great crossing did, and that has to be the biggest concern. Obviously, on the road in Fort Thomas, but you won there last year. But their lines, their physicality up front is probably the biggest concern, is it not?
Yeah, and when Coach Spire took over, that was his big emphasis. He wanted those big linemen, and he wanted to be able to run the ball. He's done a tremendous job of creating that type of culture that he's wanted, and they've done a tremendous job of adapting to the type of kids they got, and until they were able to get those type of kids. They spend a lot of time in the off season and put a lot of emphasis on that. So, and that's what they want to do, and obviously they're going to have the size advantage on us, and. But that's kind of been our concern the last 3 years, though, Tom. We've been overmatched a lot up front, but we got some kids that grind it out and gritty. So, we're going to have our hands full. There's some things we're going to have to do. We're going to have to make some plays, and we're going to have to try to find a way to get some stops. The big thing with them is if we can get up or we can get them behind the chains and we kind of get them out of their game.
Final question about back to Friday night, I would say. Maybe some concerning issues would be 6 penalties for 70 yards, some uncharacteristic, probably foolish penalties. I'm thinking, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, but if I'm the coach, I'm going, why are we doing that? Gave up a decent amount of return yards, over 200 in the return game, which is obviously anytime special teams, missed the PAT, but then gave up 400-plus yards and 20 first downs. Now, that's not been the case all year. But what did you, when you came in Saturday, watch the film, in those areas, what did you see and what message did you convey to your football team?
I think the number one, we conveyed Friday night that some of those penalties were going to stop. Very uncharacteristic of what we've tried to build here at Cooper with doing things the right way, winning with class, even losing with class, and we're not going to tolerate unsportsmanlike conducts and that. So, we addressed that Friday. That's not going to be an issue moving forward. Some of the other stuff was, some of the stuff was misalignment. Very simple things. They caught us in some misalignments defensively, and that's on us as players and coaching staffs to get that fixed. And Vogie being out, Vogelpohl, he's the team captain, but he also is kind of the captain of our defense. He does a tremendous job of getting things set up. So he was out last week, so getting him back this week should help some with that. So, we just want to improve every week. There's some things, in playing a game like a Great Crossing instead of playing, a Henry Clay right before our Highlands games is going to get us to the point where we know there's some things we got to fix on. We can focus on that this week, and we know what we have to do to stop Highlands and some of the things we have to do. We didn't do well Friday night, so we're going to really focus on that this week and get our kids ready to go.
All right, it's Cooper at Highlands on Friday night, 7 o'clock, week 6 of the season. And when we continue, somebody who was here at the beginning with you as an assistant football coach and now as an assistant principal at Cooper, get his perspective on how far the program has come and find out if he could bring us some food at some point with a food truck maybe. I know we'll talk to Justin Earsing, and he's going to want to pay some attention. He's a big Bills fan, so we got to get him on early so he can watch the Jaguars and Bills tonight. When we continue, don't forget, I know people were in here Friday night. It's the Friday football late night menu here at Barleycorns, and we'll be back doing that when we return home in a few weeks. But it's the Cooper Football Show with Jaguars coach Randy Borchers and others, and I'll talk to Justin Earsing when we continue next from the Florence Barleycorns. Welcome back to the Florence Barleycorns. It's the Cooper Football Show edition. I think this is number 9. I'm losing count because we did some early ones. We have reached the week 6 of the Kentucky football 11 seasons, with still 11 weeks, which makes absolutely no sense to me, but they continue to do that, so they didn't ask me. Arbiter doesn't make sense to me either, but they don't ask me things. They'd probably be better served if they did. I'm Tom Gamble, your host, and I'm joined by a special guest tonight, and that's Justin Earsing, who was a longtime Cooper assistant football coach with Randy and is now an assistant principal at the high school. So when you have a wife and kids, you kind of have to, right? It's the hours, and you got to get a little bit more night. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I saw you out in front of the main entrance on Friday night. Let me see if I got this right. No food, no drinks, no pets.
Yeah, that's correct.
I guess the one thing that I always find strange is, why do you need to say no pets until you see a pet?
I think they've had them there before, so that was something that made it on the banner. I haven't seen a pet come in or try to come in, but
no offense, and I have a pet. I have a dog, and I've never understood people. The last place my dog would want to go is to sit at a football game. These idiots that bring their pets to restaurants and games. I mean, especially when you've seen those bark in the parks at the Reds. It's 95 degrees, and the dog is sitting in a seat at a Reds game. They don't even know where they are. Leave your pet at home. Go somewhere without your pet. I don't get that.
I agree.
So I'm trying to help you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate
right.
that. Thank you.
So now, how difficult of a transition? Well, you were a teacher, and from transitioning and not coaching football, because you spent a lot of years doing that. How difficult has it been this year? Did you, get the gear on and get ready to go to practice and go, I don't have to do that, or no?
No. It's been, a lot of people have asked me, hey, how's it been? Do you like your new job? And it's like the hardest thing, I think, for me to try to internalize is that I'm still at the school, which I'm blessed to be at because I can still see all the games. But the transition's been difficult to see. I knew that they were going to be successful. I mean, that was, something after last year that we knew with how many students or players that we had coming back that they were going to be successful. But I think that transition's been difficult because I'll be honest, I don't miss the spring ball and the weight room, but I do miss the Fridays and the time in the locker room with the coaches and the kids. So I have missed that, but I don't miss the weight room stuff as well.
Well, that had to be difficult, knowing that they finished 12-3 last year, went to the state final, and knowing that they had a lot coming back. So it was going to be a good year, which it has been. So let's go way, way back. Let's go back to the beginning. How difficult was it? And I don't think people realize when you start a program in an area like Northern Kentucky from scratch with, the longtime program, Boone County, then Connor, then Ryle. Think back to those days, unless you've tried to wipe them from memory, of how difficult truly was it those first couple years?
Just a lot of time. We spent a ton of time together trying to prep. I mean, there were times where we knew that we'd probably go into games and we'd have to play perfect plus to compete in those games. But there's always been steady progress under Coach Borchers and his staff and his players. So those first couple years, it was rough. I think our first win was at Gallatin County, and I think that first year we beat Walton Verona as well. But I mean,
that's good. We had those as trivia questions earlier.
Oh, did you?
That's good memory.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's
So
that's good.
I think Coach Borchers took the job knowing it was going to be a process. It wasn't going to be easy. And those first few years were rough, and then we hit that peak when we went to the state finals in 2012, and then we had a little lull after that, and then now it's back up. It's like a roller coaster. But there were some long days and long nights planning and prepping. Sometimes where we knew that it was going to be a struggle to win.
And obviously 2012 was a memorable year, and that's really, and you mentioned even after that, and I think that's kind of life as a public school. I mean, I think it is in athletics it is. But were there any years, were there any players, were there any particular games for you that stand out in memory as, if I had to hit you with, give me your most 3 memorable Cooper football moments, what would they be?
So, last year's Highlands game is that's one of the top 3.
Just the second game, obviously.
The second
right?
game,
okay,
not the first
just
game.
Checking. All right.
That was ebbs and flows, ups and downs. We thought we were going to win, and I think we punted. We had a bad punt, then they fumble, and I don't even remember how that ended, but I know that we won. So that was one.
The last couple minutes of that game were insane.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It was. So that would be one of them. We had a really cool opportunity to go to Harlan County the year that we went to state in the state semifinals game. And the coolest thing about that game was brand new stadium. I think it was like a 3.5-4 hour drive. And when we got there, I just remember new stadium, new facilities. Our parents packed the stands like they always do. But when we looked across the field, there was like pockets of groups of people with different colors on from like Bell County and Harlan and all these different things. And when we were driving in on the bus, it was like there were signs of people just standing on the road like, you'll never leave Harlan alive. And we were like, where are we? What are we doing? And it was like a us versus the world kind of mentality, because all of this area of Kentucky was like, we want Harlan County to go to the state finals. And we were able to kind of knock them off. They panicked a little bit offensively and went to the spread, which they hadn't done all year. And we made a couple adjustments defensively, and we were able to go to our first state championship. So those are probably the top 2. We had a lot of good battles with South Oldham. Connor has always been close and tight.
Good rival game, sure. You mentioned something there, too, I think, that sometimes gets overlooked is really the incredible support. And Randy and I talked about, not just for football, but Cooper athletics in general. I mean, and now that you're an assistant principal at the school, you have the opportunity to see the fan base. And it is really, I would tell you, especially on the road, there are a lot of schools, they get up, they get big crowds for home games, but this fan base travels. And what is it about Cooper that you think has enabled people and allowed people to be fans like that?
I think the students invest a lot in that. We have a really good student section wherever we go. And then obviously they bring their parents to the game. But I think it's just the building. Obviously it had to start small because we pulled students from other schools. And then just the success of all of our programs, not just football, girls basketball, boys basketball. We've had golfers that have won state, or have been in state championships. We had a state championship swimmer. The school's been successful in its short history. And I think, regardless of where you are or where you're going, to a Cooper event, that you're going to have people that are going to travel and support you.
Justin Earsing is my guest, a former Cooper assistant football coach, now an assistant principal at the high school. And so let me ask you, you're from Buffalo, right?
Yeah.
All right, so are we concerned about Jacksonville tonight? They've been awful in the first couple games. We feel uncomfortable. It's at Buffalo, right?
I'm always concerned about
now,
the
have you
Bills.
been to a Bills home game?
Yes.
What is that like? I mean, outside the place looks like a dump, but is it?
They're getting a new stadium. It's getting built. I I don't even know if I can explain. It's
Well, you freeze your ass off most of the
you
time,
do.
too, right?
It's a lot of chaos, a lot of.
Have you been down with the Bills Mafia before?
I have, yeah. Back in my older days.
Ever done a backflip to break a table?
No, I haven't.
No?
No. But if the Bills win the Super Bowl, I will.
You'll be in the Bills Mafia, or you'll go to the Super Bowl?
I'm going to jump through a table.
You will? Here or there?
Wherever you want to do it.
Okay, we'll remember
You just
that.
let me know.
Well, first thing you got to do is win a Super Bowl.
That's correct.
Right?
Yeah.
You had 4 opportunities in a row
they
to
didn't
jump
win it,
on a
man.
table, right?
Yep,
So now
that's true.
tell me about the family and the food truck and how did all that get started, and when can we arrange that?
Yeah,
Just
so my dad's always wanted to open up a restaurant. He's cooked all his life. So right before COVID, they were going to get a brick and mortar, and they decided against it. They went and got a small truck. They've now upgraded to a bigger truck. They just sell buffalo food, beef on weck, buffalo-style wings, but they do a bunch of other stuff, too.
and I
They
hear
cater.
they're outstanding.
Yeah.
I've been told by people who've
I
had it
think
that it's
so.
outstanding. Yeah,
They're
people-
actually they're out today at, I think, Ballyshannon.
Really?
Yeah, they're out and about today, so.
Okay.
They had Best of Taste in Cincinnati
Oh,
2
wow.
years.
Okay.
2 out of the 3 years they've
That's
been there
impressive.
for wings. So, yeah, they do all right.
So tell me, as an assistant principal, what have you enjoyed? Obviously, it's a transition. What have you enjoyed so far about the job? And honestly, what are the challenges? I mean, I think you see and hear about a lot of things going on in schools today and how different it is. What do you love, and what are some of the challenges even a school like COOPER faces?
I think the thing that I like most about it is I'm still in the same building that I've taught at the whole time. So there's a lot of continuity. I have a lot of relationships with the teachers there and the students. So that's been a blessing in itself. Challenges are just the things that unfortunately we start to see in the schools, things that come into schools that shouldn't be coming into schools, and just some behavior things is probably the biggest adjustment for me, is trying to navigate certain behavior situations with students, but I'm learning.
All right, a couple final quick questions.
Sure.
So when you go to the games, I always ask coaches who no longer coach, do you find yourself at least internally, mentally, saying, I wouldn't have done that, we should have done that? Is that something, or can you literally just sit back, relax, and watch a game?
So I will say this. I have to. I'm in charge of the student section, so it's hard for me to watch.
Oh,
So when
okay.
they played Ryle, I got into the student section when they muffed the punt and was going crazy, probably like a kid, which I shouldn't have done because I'm an administrator. But that was different to see it from that end. But I will say on Friday, I actually told Coach Borchers this today. I said on Friday when they got the ball back with just a few seconds left in the half, I was thinking to myself, you got to take a shot here, just throw it up and see what happens. And I think we were on the same page because he did. I thought he was going to kneel it out, and I'm like, no, go take a shot. But it's different. I don't know. I still watch film, and I don't really say much to Coach Borchers about, hey, I do this, but he tries to keep me involved and says, hey, what do you think, or what did you think last week? And I appreciate that. It makes me feel like I'm still kind of around.
Well, that's good. Well, you are still you're not
I'm
kind
here.
of around.
I'm
You
here.
are around.
Yeah.
So next home game, I'm going to get out there with you, and I'll tell people what they can and can't bring in.
Okay, I appreciate
All right,
that.
will that
You want the
help you?
bullhorn?
Sure, I'll take the. I don't need a bullhorn. I'll just yell, but it's all good. But congratulations on an outside. I mean, really, you were a big part of getting this program to. And I know I can tell you unequivocally, my 2 oldest sons thoroughly enjoyed playing with you.
Yeah.
Playing for you. That sounded horribly. We need some editing there, my friend. So, so it's all good. But Justin, I appreciate it, man. It's good to see you as
Thank you.
always, and we'll see you at the games. You can see him out front. You can see him in the state. Now, are you in charge of student section at all the games?
Yeah, so I'll be
All
there this
games.
week at
Okay.
Highlands.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it'll be a wild
So you
one.
even get the road games. Okay. Yeah. So that's you're that guy, right?
That happens to the new guy. So.
Yeah. So, right. Is that what the newbie gets the students?
Oh, yep, all
is
the
that
students.
what it is? All right. Big round of applause for Justin Earsing, who does a great job. All right. When we continue, I'm going to talk to a couple players, Austin Alexander, see if he could have helped North Carolina's defense on Saturday. Don't expect me to say something about that, right? And Ryker Campbell had both guys had outstanding games Friday night. We'll talk to the two of them about Friday and about this Friday, the big game at Highlands. It's the COOPER Football Show with Jaguars coach Randy Borchers and others right here from the Florence Barleycorns. We continue next. All right, welcome back to the Florence Barleycorns. It's the Cooper Football Show with Jaguars coach Randy Borchers. And you can see as the season goes on, we minimize his talking. Well, I'm just kidding. And two of the particulars from Friday night's big win, 62-36. Was it the most points ever by Cooper? No. One shy, 63 in September of 2010 against Lloyd. In case you're wondering, I presume you knew that. But anyway, Austin Alexander and Ryker Campbell, two guys who had huge games on Friday night. Ryker, I'm going to start with you. How big was your kickoff return? So give me your kickoff return philosophy. I mean, kickoffs have been taken out of games now, right? The NFL, there aren't as many. College football, they kick it in. But when you catch a ball like that on the 8-yard line, what are you looking for?
I mean, our coaches talked all week like they thought we could break a big one, and we always just do the same return each week. But we just look for like just the hole. And I was talking to Jaden Combs. You can see in all the videos he was the lead blocker and that he blew up the kicker. And I told him he's the reason that we returned that. He came up and just blew up the kicker, and it just opened wide open.
Well, now correct me if I'm wrong. If your special teams is doing its job, the kicker shouldn't be the right. They're like the last gasp, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But that's so. Do you? Is it one of those things where you just do you take it and just kind of go full speed ahead, or are you really looking and trying to sift in the holes?
I just try and go full speed, just get what I can get. Like, it's not really about trying to break one long. Just get what you can get and let the offense get on the field. The offense can take a drive 80 yards. I believe in them. They could take it 90 yards.
Well, which they do,
yeah.
right? And this guy helped out with that. So let's talk about your first one, that 40-yard touchdown reception. To me, that was a big play. You two guys, and then Isaiah's catch right before the half was insane. But how big for you? Kind of a bust-out game, right? 10 catches, $165 in yardage, 3 touchdowns. And obviously, did you feel like in some of the early games defenses are trying to take things away from you? What was different for you Friday night?
Yeah, really, I'm just trying to do what I can in the game plan. I'm just trying to, run my routes hard and, open up whatever needs to be opened up. And it just happened to be that the mismatches lined up to where, I was able to have, my game. Defenses are going to play different ways against us because, you're going to have to with our weapons. And it just happened to be this week that it was my turn to make some plays.
Well, you had a pretty good game on defense, too, a couple interceptions. And I'm going to take, you had the big play in the Highlands game, too, when they got it down, and everybody was like, uh-oh. And, of course, you forced and recovered that fumble. What do you enjoy the most? Do you enjoy offense, special teams, defense? Is it, if you had to rank them, what order would you rank them in?
Me personally, I like defense the most, probably.
So why? What is it about defense you like the most?
I don't really know. I just always felt like defense was probably just what I'm best at, and just being able to just go around and fly around and just do whatever really on the field as long as you're doing your job it's just, to me, easier than playing offense. It just clicks easier.
What about for you? Do you prefer one over the other? I mean, I presume at the next level they're going to tell you what you're going to do, right? Will they? I mean, are you going to tell them? I mean, today players run everything, right? Once you get to college football. But do you enjoy one more? Do you think you're better on one side of the ball than the other?
Yeah, I think I'm better as a defender, and that's also my favorite. I like hitting people rather than being hit. It doesn't necessarily affect me, but if I had to look at it, and also I've always thought about if I'd want to block myself, what would I rather do? And I don't want to block myself, so defense is it for me.
Well, you could have played for North Carolina Saturday. You wouldn't even have had to hit anybody, right?
That's right.
I mean, let's be honest. Now, let's talk Highlands. Big game. So when Coach Borchers said you guys appeared a little flat last Friday, did you feel like that as a team? Can you sense that as a team when you're a little flat, and what do you kind of attribute that to?
Yeah, you can definitely feel it a little bit, like in warm-ups. Like, even he'll usually tell us, but you can definitely sense it around the locker room. It's just everybody's not as up and not.
Was it look ahead to Highlands? Was it the fact that Great Crossing sounds like it's somewhere you got to walk across the street? I mean, what is it? I mean, they're from an out-of-area team. Is it harder to get up sometimes for out-of-area teams than like a Connor, a Ryle, a Highlands?
Yeah, I think it is because whenever you don't know, like obviously we watch film, but whenever you don't know as much about a team, it's harder to like get up on them and really know how the game's going to go. So it's a little bit different getting ready for the game.
So let's talk about Highlands. Last year was two dramatically different games. You trail from start to finish, made it a close game in the first game, and you had, 13 catches in that game? And the numbers in that were just absurd. Cam was 31 of 50 for 555 yards, 6 touchdowns, and you didn't win, right? It's crazy. And that's the one where Isaiah had 280 yards receiving. So then the second game, completely different. What was the difference? And you guys obviously credit to your defense for the second game. What was the difference? What was the difference, and how do you get that kind of an effort defensively this Friday?
So the difference from the first game to the second game is really just doing our job on defense. First game, a lot of people, a new defensive line who had some injuries, trying to figure out some people in different places. So, that new defensive line, wasn't necessarily squeezing or doing the things that we were preaching because, we're just trying to figure it out. So that led to them getting quick drives, and then, having a quarterback like Cam and having an offense like we have, we're going to score pretty quick on that. So then it just went back and forth of scoring and scoring. But then we get to the second game, and we're pretty much settled in. We just came from a tough game versus Southwestern, where we had to squeeze, we had to buckle in the rain, 3 hours away from home, and we kind of knew what we were, and we knew that we needed, if we did our job, then we'd get the job done. So we just buckled down, and that was kind of our mindset.
All right, let me ask both you guys. So when you look at Friday night, what are the keys? What are the keys for you, both sides of the ball? And this is a big game. I would envision it, if you're able to win at Highlands, you're number one in the RPI, you're going to get some good points from Great Crossing. Connor's 4-1. You've still got some teams ahead that you need to defeat. But if you beat Highlands, you're probably going to stay number one in the RPI, which is huge for the postseason. What do you need to do to win in Fort Thomas?
I think offensively, just do our thing. I feel like their defense is good. They probably will stop us a little bit, but just do our thing, because I feel like our offense, even if they stop us, can get things going and do our thing. But defensively, I just feel like we need to play physical and just do our job, make sure everybody's filling their gap, and I feel like we should be okay.
What about you? And you're kind of a vocal leader, right? You're somebody who will get after. What will your message be Friday night? Is this something that, because you guys know you can beat them. You did it last year. And everybody's looking at this as this will be the big game in Northern Kentucky Friday night. What do you need to do to win?
Yeah, so offensively, just let Cam O'Hara do his thing. He's really that dude, and we believe in him. And if he can have time, I'm pretty confident in what we can do on Friday night. But defensively, I've been preaching today as we've gone to practice. Man, be ready for trench warfare. Be ready to be physical and play smash mouth football, because that's what they're going to want to do. And we're not going to back down from that kind of football, because we had to do it last year. Haven't necessarily played a running team like that this year, but man, we're ready to buckle down this year. So man, if we're physical and we really play in the trenches, then we'll be able to do what we need to do on Friday.
All right, that sums it up. Two guys who were huge on Friday night. Ryker Campbell, big 92-yard kickoff return for a TD. Ton of return yards. I think it was 167 or something like that. I'm close. And 2 interceptions. Big defensive game as well, both sides of the ball. And Austin Alexander, not that he needs a breakout game, but 10 receptions, 165 yards, and 3 TDs. Congrats on Friday, and should be fun. Fort Thomas, nobody really – it's a place to go, and their fans will be fired up, and you'll have a good fan base there. Should be a hell of a football game. Thanks, gentlemen. Austin Alexander, Ryker Campbell, and one more. We'll talk to Coach Randy Borchers about Friday night, COOOPER at Highlands. When we continue Monday Night Football, don't forget, what time is it here? I got to check. Jacksonville is going to try to cross midfield. They're at Buffalo. That game kicks off now. And then the Bengals host Washington at 8:15. We're here at the Florence Barleycorn. All right, a final segment here of the COOOPER Football Show with Jaguars coach Randy Borchers, as the first of 2 Monday Night Football games has kicked up. There are some people, let me tell you, downtown, don't stand a chance of making the end of that game. There were people down there at 6 a.m. Now, I mean, I like a beverage like the next guy, but my goodness, maybe I'm just old. I mean, think about that. So it starts at 8:15, 11:30. That is what? Almost 18 hours? I mean, maybe there was a day.
Maybe a few people calling off work tomorrow, too.
Oh, a few, you think?
Tom, you used to do that. Don't act like you did.
No, not 18 hours. No way. I'm a little wiser than that, my friend. I am. So, let's talk football. Friday night, 7 o'clock, where you live. Will you walk to the game? Oh, you have to bus. You could walk to the game, though. Or is that a little far?
Tom, anything over like 100 steps is too far for me. I'm
It's too
jumping
far.
on the bus.
I was
and
going to
going.
say, you're at the other end of Fort Thomas, right? So, I mean, this is, obviously, this has become, I think, a great rivalry. I mean, the two games last year make it even more emphasis this year. But you have to look at, you look at the RPI. I mean, you're number one when it was released the first time. Get a win over Great Crossing, that's not going to hurt you. And how about this? How about the Boone County schools? Cooper's 5-0. Connor's off to a great start, 4-1. Riles 4-1. Boone's had a bye, they're 2-2. I mean, and that only happened once this far into the season, where all four Boone County schools have been 500 or better. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think it's been like 2020 or so since it's happened.
Okay. All right. But you have to know this is a big, because Highlands is 4-1. They're number 3, I believe. Maybe that's rankings. I can't. They were number 9. But the RPI makes no sense. Well, it makes great sense since Cooper is number 1. But it
Correct.
makes
We
no
like it
sense.
this year. We
it
like
makes
it.
no sense otherwise. But how big of a game is this on multiple levels for your football team?
Well, it's a huge game. It's a district game. So every district game's a big game. But, we've preached all year RPI is very important going into the playoffs. And we kind of saw that last year. And, we got some breaks. But, it's tough to win on the road. And we had to go on the road for 4 straight weeks to win. So, ultimately, if you can get home, it's really gonna make it nice. And then you also got to look at it, come that 4th round, if you're still in there, you'd much rather be playing here than having to travel down to Bowling Green or South Warren or one of those places. So it's a huge game with that. But at the end of the day, and I told our kids this on Saturday, this is a game we want to win. This is a game we feel like, we have to win. But win or lose, this isn't our season. I mean, we saw it last year. We came out last year. We got beat by them, and we ended up beating them in the playoffs. So, there's a good chance, regardless of what happens Friday night, we may see them again. So, we're going to put everything into this game, but we got a long season left after that. So we just have to come out, play our game, let everything out on the field, and then once it's over, we got to move on.
I give you credit, though. You haven't committed the cardinal sin of coaching. You haven't said this tonight. It's just another game. Because I can't stand when coaches do that when it obviously is not. You know what I mean? I get it. You can't put too much emphasis because, to your point, you have 4 more regular season games after this, and then the postseason, which is when it really counts, proven last year. But I can't stand that. Oh, it's just another. It's not a big deal. No, that's nonsense.
Yeah, and I think coming into this year, and I would say Coach Spires is going to say the same thing. This game's been circled on both of our calendars. And
Sure,
we
it has.
both know how big of a game this is for multiple reasons. RPI, bragging rights, they're going to look at it in the sense that, they were kind of the favorite to make the state finals and possibly win the state finals. So in a lot of ways, they feel like they got upset, so they feel like they got some unfinished business to do. So, we're expecting a great game. And we know going down there with our fans, and the support that we got last year and their fans and the support they get, it's going to be a great environment. And I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun for our kids. It's going to be a lot of fun for our coaches and hopefully a lot of fun for our fans.
Well, best of luck on Friday night, and we'll be back next week to talk about that and see where we stand after 6 weeks. Cooper is 5-0, Highlands 4-1. Kickoff again 7 o'clock at David Cecil Memorial Stadium in Fort Thomas. How about that?
I got one question.
Yes.
Earsing. I say
Yes.
if we win Friday night, we make them jump through a table.
There you go. We don't need Buffalo.
No, we don't
trust
need
me,
Buffalo.
he's never going to get that opportunity
So-
with Buffalo anyway. So you might as
I'm
well.
marking it now.
All right.
We win
Here-
Friday. He's
here-
coming up here next Monday, jumping through a table.
All right, you can work on that at school.
I'll work on that.
All right, that sounds. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Problem is, he's my boss now. I'm no longer his boss, so I don't know how that's going to go over.
I'll call Wilson.
take care of it.
I'll take care of that for you. All right, you got it. Thanks again to everybody for coming out tonight. I know it's Monday Night Football, so I want to give you a chance to watch all the games. It's a great place to do it right here at the Florence Barleycorns. So it's the Cooper Football Show. Jaguars coach Randy Borchers and others. Thanks to Shane Beckett, as always, for giving me some, honest to good. I texted him back and I said, it was like he gives such great information for me, and I appreciate that. So thanks to Matt, thanks to Billy, and everybody here at the Florence Barleycorns for putting on a great show. We'll see you next Monday evening. We've got a couple giveaways, so don't go anywhere, and enjoy Monday Night Football tonight. Thanks.